Okay, at this point, you should have your 3 pages of notes. This is what you're going to use throughout this Ed puzzle. All right, so the first thing we're looking at is the one that says data breakdown. And all that is we're looking at data in a categorical platform and a numerical platform. Categorical data just means we're looking at bar graphs and frequency tables. Basically looking at how often something happens or the different things that happen. Okay, numerical data, dot plot, stem and leaf, and scatter plot all give us numbers. We're dealing with the numbers of the data. All right, so let's look first at the frequency table. Frequency tables represents the number of times an event occurs or happens. Remember, we talked about this day before yesterday when we talked about the frequency of how often the tree grew. Remember that question? So what we're looking at is transportation to school. That is the title of our frequency table. This, which would be our input, basically, is the 3 different types of transportation. So here's our whole list. And we have to take this and we're going to use tick marks to decipher how many times a student rode the bus, a student rode in their car, or how many times a student walked to school. So each time we're just simply making little tick marks. So we're going to say bus. So I'm going to put a tick mark. Walk. Bus. Car. Walk. Bus. Walk. Bus. Walk. Car. So you see that I'm marking it off and then making my tick mark. Car. Bus. So I'm going to mark this one off. And this is our 5th one. So we have 4 here. We're going to draw a line across. That means 5. All right. Bus again. Bus again. Car. Car. So all the way across. That's 5. Bus. And then bus again. So that's the easiest way to not lose track of where you've put things already and which ones you've already marked off. All right. So what we're looking at is how many times did each one happen. So we're going to take that information from the chart and put it into the frequency table like we've already done. And then it says which mode of transportation was used most by kids going to school. Oops. Okay, which transportation was used most? Well, now that I have my frequency table done, it's easy to look at and go, oh, that's easy, that's bus. Okay, so which one would be less frequent? Okay, you should have said walk because there's only 4 kids that walk to school. After you've done your tally marks, you can always count them. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 5, and that's 4. That will help you keep up with your information too. Okay, so that's a frequency table. It's just taking the information from the chart and putting tick marks next to where it belongs until you've got it all filled out. All right, now on to dot plot. Dot plot is a graph used to show frequency of data along a number line. Okay, so basically it's very similar to a frequency table. Okay, it's taking all that information and instead of putting it into an actual frequency table, we're using dot plots. Okay, so we're using information to create a dot plot. So look at what we have. The smallest number is 1. The biggest number is 3. Nope, there's 3.5. So I'm going to count. You can do 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then understand that these are going to be your halves. Or you can write them. Okay. 0, 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5. So now all we're going to do is create dots. So 2.5, I'm going to put a dot just above the 2.5 mark. 1, so I'm going to mark that out. I'm going to put a dot above the 1. 3.5, mark that out, and put a dot above 3.5. Because if this is 3, this is 3.5. All right. Mark out 3, put a dot. Mark out 2.5, put another dot. Mark out 2, put a dot. 2.5, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1.5. So there's 1. This is 1.5. 2.5. So over here's 2. This would be 2.5. So I'm doing 1, and then I'm going to do another one. All right, so there's your dot plot. That's how you complete a dot plot. Okay, you simply take the information that you're given and place it on the number line in the correct spot. The big thing with the dot plot is knowing your scale. Okay, knowing your scale. And we could have, if we were doing 5.5, 5 3/4, 6, we would have done from 5 to 7. Okay, so it depends on what your scale is, what you're looking at, what chunk of numbers. Okay, so on this one, using the information that we have, this says the greatest bags of apples weighs. So what is the biggest bag of apples? That's what it means. The biggest bag of apples. Which one would it be? Okay, the 3.5. 3.5 is the biggest bag of apples we have. Okay, and we know because here's our title, weight of a bag of apples. All right, what's the smallest bag of apples weigh? Well, 0 would be the smallest, but there's no dots above it. And there's no dots above half. So the smallest bag that we have is 1. Okay, and that'd be 1. We're going to say pound. There. Weight of a bag of apples in pounds. So the greatest bag of apples weighs 3.5 pounds. And the smallest bag of apples weighs 1 pound. So what's the range? Okay, range is a new word for y'all. I know you talk about it in 4th grade. But range is, you need to write this down on your paper, the difference, okay, range is the difference between, okay, range is the difference between the largest number and the smallest. Okay, so this is a good piece of information to have. Range is the difference between the largest number and the smallest number. And what does difference mean? Okay, it should mean to you, subtract. So what's the range of the weight? What's the biggest measurement? 3.5. And the smallest is 1. So we're just going to subtract. If I have a half and I take nothing away, I still have a half. And 3 minus 1 is 2. So it would be 2.5 pounds. Okay, now let's look at bar graphs. You use data from the table to make a bar graph. So here's our table. Okay, it's titled football game, so we put in the football game or football scores. It doesn't matter as long as it's about football. Okay, the game that's being played is this, is the x-axis. The number of points or the score is your y-axis. So we have a title. And we have a title or a label for each of our X and Y axes. Okay? And it says on there, every graph needs a title. On a bar graph, label the X and Y axis accordingly. So, based on where they are. All right. So, it says game 1 was 21. So, You see that it is marked at 21. Game 2 was 12. So it is 12. Game 3 was 15. And game 4 was 24. Now, a lot of times you will just get the bar graph. You won't get this already done. You'll get this if they want you to complete the graph. But if the graph is already done, you won't get this information. Okay? So you'll have to look at that and fill that information in yourself. Okay, so number 1 says, how many more points were scored in game 4 than in game 2? So game 4 was 24 points. Game 2 was 12. And the question says, how many more? All right. So that means we're going to subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. So 12 points. Okay, how many points were scored in the first 3 games? Okay, so there was 21 in the first, 12 in the second, 15 in the third. 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4. 48 points. All right, and the last one. What's the total number of points scored? All you have to do is take your information and add it all up. So 21, 12, 15, 24. There's 12, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there was 72 points. All right. Next is the stem and leaf, which shows data arranged by place value. So you know that a stem and leaf plot is done where the ones place is the leaf, which is this side, and the tens place is the stem, depending on what the picture is. So you always have to look at your key. So my key says 5, 3. That means tens place, ones place, because 5, 3 equals or represents the number 53. Okay. So this is always what you need to look for when you are looking at your stem and leaf plot. Because sometimes it could say 5, 3 represents 5.3, which means the ones place is the stem and the leaf is your tenths place. So you always have to pay attention. In this case, the ones place is the leaf. The tens place is your stem. All right, so let's fill it out. Okay, but on this one, we have to stay in order based on whatever our stem is. So we're going to start with the stem of 5. So I have a 53, and that's it. So I'm going to put 5 and 3. Represents 53. All right, now we're going to do our stem for our leaves for 6. But I have to mark all of them first. 60, 67, 65, 69, 64, 68, 67, 62, and 67. So I think that's all of them. Let's start with the 6. So we already got the 6. We're not going to place the 6. We just have to place all of the ones place numbers in order down here. So that's why we can't go, just start marking them off and go. Okay, because we have to put them in order. So 60 is the smallest number. So I'm going to put a 0. And there's only one 60, so that's it. Okay, 7, 5, 9. There's a 4, 2. So 62 is the next smallest. So I'm going to put a 2 and mark it out. Then I'm going to put that 4 and mark it out. Okay, there's a 5. Mark it out. 67, there's 1, 2, 3 of them. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 7s. And then I'm going to put an 8. And then a 9. So that means 53, 60, 62, 64, 65, 67, 67, 67, 68, 69. All right. Now we're going to look at our 7s. So we've got 78, 76, 72. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. That's it. All right, so 8, 6, and 2. 2 comes first, so I'm going to put a 2. And then the 6, and then the 8. All right, all that we're left with are our 8s and a 9. So 8s, I got 0, 1, 1, 2. So I'm going to put 0, 1, 1, 2 and mark them out. And I only have 1 9, and it's 97. So there you go. There's our stem and leaf plot. Okay. If you're looking for the which stem has the most leaves, it would be 6. Okay. Which stems had the least leaves? 5 and 7. All right. So look at the questions. The number of 67 has a stem that is blank and a leaf that is blank. So what's the stem for 67? Okay, and then what is the leaf for 67? All right, so the stem is 6 and the leaf is 7. Easy peasy. All right, how many people scored 65 and below? All right, so we're saying how many people scored 65 and below. It says, and, so we're including 65. All right, so these numbers, this is why this has to be in order. All of these numbers are below 65, aren't they? 60, 62, 64, and then 65, and then 53. So all I have to do is count my leaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 people scored 65 and below. And then here's that question again. What is the range of scores? Again, range means the difference from the biggest to the smallest. All right, so what's our biggest number? Okay, 97. What's our smallest number? Okay, 53. And then we're going to find the difference, which means we're going to, we're going to subtract. 7 minus 3 is 4. 9 minus 5, 9 minus 5 is 4. So the range is 44. All right, and the last data table we're going to talk about is the scatter plot, which you've already done. A graph that shows the relationship between 2 sets of data. So spending at the mall, the amount of time, and the amount of money. The amount of time is down here as your X, and the amount of money is your Y. So X and Y. Okay, and then really it says title or label the graph and the X and Y axis on the scatter plot. So title is spending at the mall, the X is the amount of time, and the Y is the amount of money spent. All right, and then remember, all we're doing is graphing ordered pairs, just like we have been with input-output tables. So our first ordered pair would be 2, 6. So I'm going to go over, 2, 10. Over to 2, up to 10. 6, 35. Over to 6, up to 35. 3, 17. Over to 3, up 17-ish. 1, 10. Over 1, up 10. 2, 15. 2, 18. 5, 25. 4, 20. 1, 5. 3, 15. 2, 25. Okay, so a scatter plot is just like it states. It's scattered all over the board. So we don't know, there's no set schedule or set standard for these. So how many people who spent 2 hours at the mall also spent more than $10? So time, we're looking at 2 hours. So how many people spent 2 hours at the mall also spent more than $10? So this person spent exactly $10, which is not more than 10. This person spent, 3 people spent over $10. Okay. How many people who spent 2 hours at the mall also spent more than $10? So 3 people spent more than $10 at the mall in 2 hours. Okay, so now that we're finished, you need to make sure your name is on all 3 pages, and you need to go turn them into the tray. I want to look at them to make sure that you followed along and wrote out all the information that I was writing out. Okay, once you're done, then you will need to get back in, and there's another Edpuzzle for you to do on some star scatterplot questions.